Hello, Bob Murphy here. So quickly, I just want to show you that I'm going to use this number 208, or I'm going to use 2080. I'm going to use 4016. Why do I use that number? Okay, where does that come from? The math of it is a joke. Now, the theory, philosophy, sociology, economics behind all that, that's a different story. And hopefully I can persuade you of the usefulness of this perspective I'm going to take with some government data and not just my own sob story. Now, all right, let's go to real quick the math. What the hell is 208 about? Well, look, here in Seattle, where I've lived for 30 years, you got some of the big players, right? Seattle City government, King County government, Boeing, Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks. Somewhere in the personnel world, the human resources, the hiring, firing world, there's people that are playing around with this number 2080, and that's based on 40 hours a week times 52 weeks a year. Okay. They have to have work for you, and then they got to accommodate your sick days, your paid vacation, your paid holidays. And as it turns out, a lot of Americans don't have all that kind of stuff. I mentioned those big companies because those big organizations, because everybody's like, oh, I can't wait to work for them and have good pay and benefits. Yeah, okay. Great, great, great. So anyway, is 208 and 2080 and 4016 that I'm going to use. Where does that come from? 40 hours a week times 52 weeks a year is 2080 hours in a year. And it turns out it's not just Boeing and Amazon and Microsoft and Seattle government that can use 2080 for budgeting purposes. You can too, all right? And my next video, I'm going to look at what happens if you took $208. That's 10 cents an hour. All right. Whoa. 10 cents an hour. That's 2,080 dimes. What happens if you take all those dimes and you got 4% interest and you saved them for 30 years? Now, the problem's actually done out in front of us, but I'm going to digress. I want to talk about this 280, this 2080. Where does this come from? Because honestly, I stumbled on it. I stumbled on this just through my own like total scatterbrain work life. And I have to stop sharing this thing. And part of what I stumbled on a gazillion years ago was the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. And okay, where now? Oh, share screen. And it was a good thing to stumble on because it gave me some perspective on where do I fit in this huge nightmare of an economy? Like, did you know there's 155 million people working in the United States? Now, this first thing I'm showing you here is, I mean, I know you can read Table 3, distribution of employed wage and salary workers by tenure with current employer. Okay. Before I get to my personal story and my personal data, I want to make a point to people. I hope it can get some stickiness with this point. Now, first off, you can see by the URL up here. Remember, if I'm talking too fast, open this in 2 sessions and have one session where you're just looking at the document. And then the other section, you can listen to my wonderful words, right? My wonderful speech. And the URL for this thing is bls.gov/news release PDF /tenure. I happen to be a person who thinks the Bureau of Labor Statistics is probably trying to do a good job. Um, there was a woman in charge of the Department of Labor during the Depression, Frances Perkins. She graduated Mount Holyoke College, close to where I grew up. She graduated in 1902 with a degree in physics. Um, Part of what she did, and people prior to her, she was the first woman cabinet secretary in the United States, and she worked for FDR. Was trying to get good data about what's going on in the economy, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And this particular data set, I hope you can see where the cursor is. Now, I wanted to look at, this is total right now. I'm directing your eye to this. I'm not reading the word total because you don't know what it means. You know what total is, but I want you to direct at total, and I want you to look at this 55 to 64 years, this bracket. I'm sorry, this line. There's 23 million people in the labor market at that age. 23 million people. And then look way over here, 20 years or more. So you have 28.9% of them are with their employer for 20 years or more. Let's just think about this for a minute, right? If you're 55 years old and you just changed jobs, how old? You're going to be 75 before you can work for that employer for 20 years. If you're 60, you got to work till 80, okay? People in this age bracket, this age, 55 to 64, according to this data, 28.9% of them have been with their employer for 20 or more years. So there's 64 back to 44, or 55 back to 35. That means 70% of the people out there probably had to change jobs. And it turns out the median, and that's not on this particular page, the median, which is half of the people are above and half are below, the median is about 4.7 years. I mean, it's just a fact. Like, we all have this fantasy, oh, I'm going to get a job at Amazon and work there till I retire. Good. Good for you. But then there's a lot of us that are like, what the hell is going on? And what I'm going to show you is knock on wood. I fell in this by just because of what I was doing as a working stiff. I learned how to budget because I was broke. And now what I have here is some summary data about my job experiences. I had bounced in and out of college. I grew up on welfare. There are people that helped me. There are a lot of adults that helped me, and thank you. But they didn't have, when they helped me, they were hurting themselves. They were hurting their future. So I tried not to dip into that bucket too much. I hope I didn't. But before I go prattling on about the importance of budgets, I want to show you look, in 1980, I was making $3.50 an hour. I was getting paid every Friday. A year later, I was making $4.25 an hour. Now we can do the percents. That's a good bump. I forget what the minimum wage was at the time. My rent at the time was $150 a month. It turns out it was like 30% of my take home. I was actually able to save money when I wasn't blowing it all. But I had to live really frugally. I moved to Boston, my rent doubles, but my pay's up to $5.25 an hour. Now let's stop for a minute. When you're working 40 hours a week and you get $1 an hour raise, that's $40. And if you're taking home, let's just say ballpark, you're paying 20% on tax, you're taking home 80% of that. Well, that's another $32 a week. Yeah, right. Did I do something wrong? I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm feeling like I did something wrong. Look, another $32 a week is not run out and buy an Audi or a Mercedes made out of leather and gold. Not when you're sitting at 425 and 25.25 an hour. Um, Couple things to notice here. Up to 1988, 89, I was paid every Friday. I got real used to budgeting my money. So I wasn't broke. I mean, I was broke, but at least I had my bills paid. My credit rating was killer. I didn't have any real paid vacation until I was like, when the hell was this? 2025. I had paid sick days, paid vacation days. I had good insurance. Before that, it was insurance was cross your fingers. Um, I moved to Seattle, and this is where my budgeting went like all the hell. And they used to pay you by month. And I'd go to interviews, and they're like, "Well, how much do you expect to be paid per month?" And I'm like, "Hey, what the hell are you talking about?" Well, it turns out, I don't know, this is what they did out here. So you had to be able to go, oh, per month times 12 divided by 2,080 gives me an hourly rate. I came out here, I was making 770 an hour. It was a bit of a drop from the 9 when I left Boston. Now, in 1989, Seattle was a lot cheaper than Boston. Um, but 770 was a real kick in the pants, and I gambled on this boat thing, and I ended up doing boats for a bunch of years. That pay was all over the map. Um, you were paid at the end of each trip, like you go out and they try to fill the boat with fish before they run out of diesel fuel. Food they don't care about, actually, even though I was the cook. Um, and I was on a bunch of different jobs up there. Um, the first one I was paid by the month, but that's times 12 divided by 365 because they really paid me for each day, no hourly there. Then I had a job on a smaller boat, but I was paid 10 cents a case of fish. And that turned out to be like $5,000 in 5 weeks. Although we didn't catch nothing for 3 weeks. God, I was panicked on that one. But I left Boston making $9.25 an hour. Let's just take $9 an hour times 2,000 hours of pay. That's 50 weeks. Well, 9 times 2 is 18,000. So I was making about 19 grand. And here I work on this crazy boat, crazy ass boat. I make $5,000 in 5 weeks. Woo! I had another job. The next job was paid 0.0155% of crew share. I mean, oh my God, I was so broke, but I didn't give a crap. Well, I had money in the bank, but I mean, it was like, yeah, okay, let's see what happens. I ended up making 30,000, almost 30,000 bucks in 83 days. That was the best job I ever had up in Alaska in terms of pay. That one, just like I paid off some student loans, and I had real money in the bank. That was, boy, life changing. Um, I work on a tug. I got a daily rate, and then blah da 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 da. Go back to school, get a math degree. I'm taking math classes at the University of Washington, Seattle. I'm in my 30s. I'm with all these 20-year-olds, and they're like, "Oh yeah, go work in software. Here, just take networking for dummies and read it before the interview." I mean, really, it was so crazy in the 90s. Any of you at the right age who experienced that, you know what I'm talking about. It's insane. And so I ended up working doing email server support for 18 bucks an hour. No paid holidays, no insurance, but it was 18 bucks an hour in 97 when I'd been making $9 an hour just 6 years ago. That was pretty good. Now, I'm not spilling any beans. Microsoft had a lot of contractors at the time, and some contractors paid less money, but they gave you 2 weeks paid and good health insurance. And so, bingo, here I am again. I'm trying to break everything into an hourly rate of pay. And you'll see this in some union job postings, like our benefits are three, our retirement is $3 an hour, our health insurance is $4 an hour, your rate is $27 an hour. This 2080 is a useful way to do budgeting. And I just hope, all right, so end of speech. And if you don't like what I say, of course, I hope you don't go through the crazy crap I went through just trying to keep your nose above water. But the fact is that only 29% of us make it to 55 to 64 with 20 years at the same boss. So the same job. So, learning how to budget, not a bad thing. Now, the point of these financial formula videos is not talking about budget. If this thing blows up and people want, oh, Murphy, please teach us how to use a spreadsheet and a budget. Yeah, I'll do that. That'd be great. But, I'll probably just be nothing on the internet. All right. So, end of this. This is what we did, right? Remember, the formula is a joke. 52 times 40 is 2,080. And if you got 10 cents an hour, that's 2,080 dimes or $208. And then there's all the philosophical, theological, theoretical stuff at the end. I'm going to close this bad boy down, and I'm looking at the Zoom. You guys. Where the hell do it? Click on the red button that says end.